My name is Daniel Matthews. I am 36 years old, and I work as a senior software architect at a tech company in Seattle. Most people would look at my life and think I have it all figured out. Corner office with a view of Elliott Bay, six-figure salary, a beautiful house in Queen, and with my wife of 8 years. The kind of success story that makes other men envious. Except my wife was not the woman I thought I married. And I was about to discover just how wrong I had been about everything. Every morning at exactly 5:30, my iPhone alarm cuts through the silence of our bedroom like a digital knife. I have been waking up at this time for 4 years now, ever since I got promoted to senior architect, and the demands of managing a 12-person development team required me to start each day an hour before everyone else. The routine has become so ingrained that I rarely need the alarm anymore. My internal clock has adapted to the rhythm of success, the price of professional excellence in an industry that never sleeps. I roll out of bed carefully, trying not to disturb Jessica, who usually sleeps until 7. Or at least she used to. Lately, I have been noticing that her side of the bed is often empty when I wake up, the sheets already cool to the touch. When I ask her about it, she claims she has been having trouble sleeping and gets up early to do yoga or read. Perfectly reasonable explanations that somehow feel slightly off, like a software function that returns the correct output but through a process you cannot quite trace. My morning routine is precise and efficient. Shower in the marble-tiled bathroom we renovated 2 years ago. Dress in one of my 12 identical navy suits that hang in our walk-in closet like a row of professional armor. Make coffee in the kitchen that still looks like it belongs in Architectural Digest because we rarely cook elaborate meals anymore. By 6:15, I am walking the 8 blocks to my office building, joining the stream of other professionals who have built their identities around their careers because that is easier than building them around relationships that require constant attention and maintenance. The walk to work takes exactly 18 minutes at my usual pace. I know this because I have timed it multiple times the way I time and measure everything in my life. Details matter in software architecture. They also matter when you spend most of your life trying to optimize systems for maximum efficiency and minimum points of failure. I apply the same analytical approach to everything: my exercise routine, my investment portfolio, my meal planning, even my marriage. If something is not performing as expected, you diagnose the problem, implement a solution, and monitor the results. The problem is that marriages are not software systems. They cannot be debugged with logic and code reviews. They cannot be optimized through better algorithms or more efficient processes. They are messy, illogical, human things that require intuition and emotional intelligence and the kind of attention that I have always been better at giving to computers than to people. My office is on the 42nd floor of a gleaming tower in South Lake Union, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offer a panoramic view of Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains beyond. The elevator ride-up takes exactly 93 seconds, and I use that time to mentally review my schedule and priorities for the day. Today, like most days, I have back-to-back meetings until noon, followed by architecture reviews, code reviews, and strategic planning sessions that will determine whether our latest product launch succeeds or fails spectacularly. The tech industry moves at a pace that would be considered insane in any other field. 6-month development cycles, constant feature updates, user bases that grow from 0 to millions in a matter of weeks. Success requires complete focus, the ability to think 3 steps ahead while solving the immediate problems that threaten to derail everything you have built. It is exactly the kind of challenge that appeals to my systematic mind, the kind of environment where analytical thinking and attention to detail are not just valued but essential for survival. My assistant Kelly greets me with my schedule printed on cream-colored paper and a cup of coffee that is exactly the right temperature. She has been working for me for 2 years now, and she knows my routines and preferences better than most people know their spouse's favorite foods. Kelly remembers that I take my coffee black, that I prefer meetings scheduled in 90-minute blocks with 15-minute buffers, that I need at least 30 minutes of uninterrupted time before any important presentation to review my notes and mentally rehearse key points. Good morning, Mr. Matthews. You have the Morrison client review at 9, the architecture committee meeting at 10:30, lunch with the Steinberg group at 12:30, and your one-on-one with the junior developers at 3. Also, your wife called yesterday afternoon around 4. Something about needing help with a household project this weekend. I pause in the middle of reviewing my emails. Jessica calling my office is unusual. She has my cell phone number, my work number, and my email address. She also knows that Kelly screens my calls during business hours and that I prefer to handle personal matters during designated times rather than having them interrupt my workflow. But she called my office, which means she wanted to ensure that I would actually receive the message rather than seeing a missed call and promising myself I would call back later. Did she leave a specific message about what kind of help she needs? She said something about your father-in-law throwing out his back and needing someone to help move boxes in their attic. She sounded. Kelly pauses, searching for the right word. Hopeful, I guess? Like she really wanted you to say yes. Hopeful. That is not a word I associate with Jessica's tone when she talks about her parents or household obligations. Usually, her requests for help with family matters carry a resigned quality, like she is fulfilling an obligation rather than asking for something she actually wants. This difference in tone strikes me as worth noting, the way any deviation from expected behavior patterns warrants investigation when you are troubleshooting a complex system. I spend the first 2 hours of my workday absorbed in technical specifications and code reviews, the kind of analytical work that has always made perfect sense to me. Code does not lie or manipulate or hide its true intentions. If you write a function correctly, it performs exactly as designed every single time. If there is a bug, you can trace it to its source, fix it, and verify that the fix works. The logical progression from problem to solution is clear, measurable, and satisfying in a way that human interactions rarely achieve. The Morrison client review goes smoothly. I present my analysis of their user experience architecture, recommend specific improvements based on performance metrics and user behavior data, and answer their questions with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you have done the research and analyzed every possible variable. Mr. Morrison shakes my hand afterward and says, "Daniel, you really have a gift for breaking down complex problems. Your wife must be incredibly proud of what you have accomplished." I smile and thank him for the compliment, but his comment stays with me as I walk back to my office. When was the last time Jessica expressed pride in my professional accomplishments? When was the last time she asked me about a project I was working on or showed interest in the technical challenges that consume most of my mental energy? When was the last time she seemed genuinely excited about anything I had achieved? I realize I cannot remember. The architecture committee meeting involves 3 hours of discussing database optimization strategies and scalability challenges for our next major release. These are the kinds of problems I love solving. Complex, multifaceted issues that require creative thinking within strict technical constraints. We debate the merits of different approaches, analyze performance benchmarks, and make decisions that will affect millions of users. By the time we finish, I feel the satisfaction that comes from contributing to something larger than myself, something that will have measurable impact on the world. But as I walk to my lunch meeting with the Steinberg group, I find myself thinking about Jessica again. Specifically, I am thinking about the conversation we had last Sunday morning when I tried to explain why I was excited about a breakthrough my team had achieved in machine learning optimization. She listened politely for about 3 minutes before changing the subject to ask whether I thought we should repaint the guest bathroom. At the time, I assumed she was just not interested in technical details. Now I wonder if her disinterest was part of a larger pattern of disconnection that I have been too busy to notice. The lunch with Steinberg Group takes place at a downtown restaurant that specializes in Pacific Northwest cuisine and caters to the kind of business meetings where important decisions get made over expensive wine and locally sourced salmon. We discuss their portfolio diversification strategy, their concerns about market volatility, and their interest in investing in emerging technologies. It is the kind of conversation that requires me to think simultaneously about technical possibilities and business realities, to translate complex innovations into language that non-technical investors can understand and evaluate. Daniel, your ability to explain these concepts in accessible terms is exactly what we need. Mrs. Steinberg tells me over dessert, "You have this gift for making complicated things seem manageable. I bet your family appreciates having someone who can solve any problem that comes up." Family. The word hits me differently than it used to. 8 years ago, when Jessica and I got married, we talked about building a family together. Not just having children, though that was part of it, but creating a partnership where we supported each other through whatever challenges life presented. We were going to be the couple who figured things out together, who made decisions as a team, who celebrated each other's successes and helped each other through failures. Somewhere along the way, that vision of partnership evolved into something more like parallel lives. I focused on building my career and achieving financial security. Jessica focused on her marketing job and managing our household. We divided responsibilities efficiently, maintained our individual goals, and assumed that our marriage was solid because we never fought about major issues and always paid our bills on time. But efficiency is not the same as intimacy, and avoiding conflict is not the same as being happy. Walking back to my office after lunch, I make a decision that surprises me. I am going to call Jessica back and tell her that I will help her parents this weekend. Not because I owe them anything, and not because I particularly enjoy spending time with her father, who has never quite warmed up to me despite 8 years of polite conversation, but because maybe this is an opportunity to reconnect with my wife, to show her that I can be present for the things that matter to her instead of just the things that matter to our financial future. I dial our home number from my office phone. Jessica answers on the second ring. "Hello. Hi, it is me. Kelly told me you called yesterday about your parents needing help with some cleaning project." "Oh, hi. Yes, Dad threw out his back again trying to move boxes in the attic. You know how he is about asking for help." Her voice carries a warmth I have not heard in weeks. "I was hoping maybe you could drive out there with me on Saturday morning. It would probably take most of the day, but I know they would really appreciate it. Of course, I do not have anything pressing this weekend. What time do you want to leave?" There is a pause, and I can hear what sounds like genuine surprise in her voice when she responds. "Really? You are sure you do not mind spending your Saturday doing manual labor in a dusty attic? Jessica, your parents are important to you, which makes them important to me. Besides, it has been a while since we spent a full day together doing something that was not work-related. That is really sweet, Daniel. Thank you. I will tell them we can be there by 10. After I hang up, I sit in my office looking out at the Seattle skyline and thinking about the tone of Jessica's voice. She sounded genuinely pleased and maybe a little surprised that I had agreed so readily to sacrifice my weekend for her family's needs. When did helping my wife become something unexpected rather than something automatic? When did I become the kind of husband who had to be convinced to show up for the people she cares about? The rest of my afternoon is consumed by one-on-one meetings with the junior developers on my team. These sessions are some of my favorite parts of the job because they remind me why I love software development in the first place. Working with bright, enthusiastic people who are excited about solving problems and building things that matter. Mentoring them through technical challenges and helping them develop the skills they need to advance their careers. "You have this ability to see patterns that the rest of us miss," says Marcus, one of my most promising junior developers, as we review his code for a complex authentication system. It is like you can look at 1,000 lines of code and immediately spot the one function that is going to cause problems 6 months from now. Pattern recognition. That is what software architecture really is. The ability to see how individual components will interact with each other over time, to anticipate problems before they occur, to design systems that can handle unexpected stress and evolving requirements. It occurs to me that I have been applying this same analytical approach to my marriage, looking for patterns in Jessica's behavior that might indicate underlying issues. The problem is that I have been treating those patterns like bugs to be fixed rather than symptoms of deeper problems that require conversation and mutual understanding to resolve. By the time I leave the office at 7:30, I have made another decision. Instead of stopping at the grocery store to pick up ingredients for a quick dinner, I am going to surprise Jessica by bringing home food from her favorite Thai restaurant. The place downtown that makes pad Thai exactly the way she likes it, with extra lime and just enough spice to make her nose tingle. We used to go there together when we were dating, back when we had time for leisurely dinners and conversations that lasted until the restaurant was ready to close. The drive home through Seattle traffic gives me time to think about what I want to say to Jessica when I see her. I want to ask her about her day, about her current projects at work, about whether she is happy with how our life together has evolved. I want to have the kind of conversation we used to have before we both got so busy managing our individual responsibilities that we forgot to pay attention to our shared relationship. But when I arrive at our house in Queen and Jessica's car is not in the driveway. The house is dark except for the porch light that automatically turns on at sunset. I use my key to enter through the front door, calling out her name as I step into the foyer that still smells faintly of the expensive candles she likes to burn on weekends. Jessica? I brought dinner. No response. I set the bags of Thai food on the kitchen counter and check my phone for messages. Nothing. I try calling her cell phone. It goes straight to voicemail, which means either her battery is dead or she has turned it off intentionally. Hey, it is me. I brought home pad Thai and green curry from that place you like. Call me when you get this message. I put the food in the refrigerator and walk through our house, looking for clues about where Jessica might have gone. Her laptop is not on the kitchen counter where she usually leaves it. Her gym bag is missing from the closet, but her work clothes from today are hanging neatly in our bedroom closet, which means she came home and changed before going wherever she went. I find a note on her nightstand, written in her careful handwriting on the stationery she uses for important communications. Daniel, last-minute book club meeting tonight. Sarah's house. Might be late. Do not wait up. J. Book club. Jessica has been part of the same book club for 3 years. A group of 6 women who meet monthly to discuss whatever novel they have chosen for that period. Usually, the meetings are scheduled well in advance, and Jessica mentions them several days beforehand so we can coordinate our schedules. A last-minute book club meeting is unusual, but not impossible. Maybe someone had a conflict with the originally scheduled date, or maybe they decided to add an extra meeting to discuss a particularly complex book. But something about the note bothers me. Jessica rarely writes notes anymore. If she needs to communicate something urgent, she sends a text message or calls. The fact that she took time to write out a formal note suggests either that she was in a hurry and did not want to risk me missing a phone call, or that she wanted to create a physical record of her explanation for where she would be tonight. I eat dinner alone at our kitchen table, trying to focus on work emails and project planning instead of wondering why my wife's absence feels different tonight than it usually does. Jessica has always been social, with friends and interests that do not necessarily include me. I have never been the kind of husband who expects to know her whereabouts every moment or who requires constant attention and validation. Independence is healthy in a marriage. Personal space is important for individual growth. But tonight, something feels off. Maybe it is the surprise in her voice when I agreed to help her parents this weekend, or the formal tone of her note, or the way she turned off her phone so completely that my call did not even ring through to voicemail. Maybe it is the accumulation of small changes I have been noticing but not analyzing. The way she has started locking her phone with a passcode, the way she does her own laundry now instead of throwing everything together, the way she seems more distracted during our conversations. Or maybe I am overthinking things because I have been trained to look for system vulnerabilities and potential points of failure. Maybe Jessica is exactly where she said she would be, discussing literature with her friends and not thinking at all about the fact that her husband is sitting alone in their expensive house, wondering when they stopped feeling like partners and started feeling like roommates who happened to share a mortgage. She comes home at 11:47. I know the exact time because I am still awake, reading a technical manual in bed, when I hear her car pull into the driveway. By the time she enters our bedroom, I have turned off my reading light and am pretending to be asleep. Jessica moves quietly around the room, changing clothes and brushing her teeth with the kind of careful stealth people use when they are trying not to wake someone. But I am not asleep. I am lying in the dark, listening to her routine and trying to identify what feels different about it tonight. She smells like wine and something else, something floral and expensive that I do not recognize. Not the perfume she usually wears, and not the scent of whatever soap or shampoo she uses. Something new. When she finally settles into bed beside me, I can feel the tension in her body. She is lying very still, very deliberately, like someone who is pretending to fall asleep rather than actually falling asleep. Her breathing is too controlled, too conscious. After 8 years of marriage, I know the difference between Jessica sleeping and Jessica performing sleep. I lie awake for another hour, staring at the ceiling and trying to organize my thoughts into some kind of logical framework. What I know: Jessica attended a last-minute book club meeting that required her to turn off her phone completely. She came home later than usual, smelling like wine and unfamiliar perfume. She is pretending to be asleep in a way that suggests she does not want to have a conversation about her evening. What I suspect: something about tonight was different from her usual book club meetings. Something that makes her want to avoid discussing the details with me. What I am going to do: pay closer attention to patterns, document inconsistencies, gather more data before drawing conclusions. Because if there is one thing my career has taught me, it is that assumptions without evidence lead to bad decisions. And if there is one thing my marriage has taught me, it is that bad decisions in relationships have consequences that are much harder to debug than problems in code. The next morning, Jessica is back to her normal routine. She wakes up at 7, showers, dresses for work in one of her conservative business suits, and makes coffee for both of us while I get ready for my own day. She seems relaxed and content, humming softly while she loads the dishwasher and checks her phone for messages. "How was book club?" I ask, trying to keep my tone casual while I pour coffee into my travel mug. "Oh, you know how it is. Sarah picked a really depressing novel about immigrants and loss, so we spent most of the night trying to find deeper meaning in all the suffering." She rolls her eyes in the exaggerated way she uses when she wants to convey that something was mildly tedious but not worth complaining about seriously. "I probably should have warned you I would be late, but it was so last minute that I barely had time to change clothes and drive over there." Her explanation sounds reasonable and natural. It includes specific details that make it feel authentic. Sarah picked the book, the subject matter was depressing, the discussion took longer than expected. If I were not already suspicious, I would accept this account without question and move on to planning our weekend. But I am suspicious now, and once you start looking for inconsistencies, they become impossible to ignore. "What was the book?" Asked. "What?" "The book you discussed. What was it called?" There is a pause of perhaps 2 seconds while Jessica finishes putting away the clean dishes from the dishwasher. 2 seconds is not long enough to be obviously evasive, but it is long enough for someone to think of a plausible title rather than recall the actual book they spent 3 hours discussing the night before. The Namesake, she says finally, by Jhumpa Lahiri. Really beautiful writing, but just incredibly sad. The Namesake. I happen to know that book because I read it several years ago when it was making rounds on various literary award lists. It is indeed about immigrants and loss, and it is definitely sad. It is also a book that was published almost 2 decades ago and has been widely discussed in book clubs across the country. If Jessica wanted to name a plausible book that fit the description she had already given, The Namesake would be a safe choice. I thought you read that one already, I say. Did not you discuss it a couple of years ago when you first joined the group? Another pause. This one is longer, perhaps 4 seconds, and I can see Jessica processing the implications of my question. If she admits that they read The Namesake before, she has to explain why they are reading it again. If she denies it, she risks me remembering correctly and catching her in a lie. We did read it before, but Sarah wanted to revisit it because she thought we rushed through it the first time. You know how she is about making sure everyone really understands the cultural significance. This explanation is also plausible. Book clubs do sometimes revisit books, especially when they feel like the discussion was inadequate the first time. Sarah, whoever she is, could very well be the kind of person who insists on thorough analysis of cultural themes. But the entire exchange has taken on the quality of a performance rather than a natural conversation. Jessica is answering my questions correctly, but she is thinking too hard about her responses. She is managing the conversation rather than just participating in it. I finish my coffee and kiss her goodbye before leaving for work, but I spend the entire walk to my office thinking about the difference between truth and performance. In software development, we have automated tests that verify whether code is performing as expected. When a function returns the correct output, we know it is working properly. But marriages do not have automated tests. When your spouse gives you the right answers to your questions, you have to trust that those answers reflect genuine experiences rather than carefully constructed explanations designed to manage your perception of reality. The problem is that once you start questioning the authenticity of someone's responses, every interaction becomes a potential source of evidence for or against your suspicions. You start analyzing tone and timing and word choice instead of just accepting what you are told. You start looking for patterns of deception instead of patterns of affection. You start treating your marriage like a system that might be compromised, rather than a relationship built on mutual trust and shared commitment. But what do you do when the evidence suggests that your system actually is compromised? What do you do when the person you trust most in the world starts acting like someone who has something to hide? You start gathering more data. You start paying attention to details you previously ignored. You start looking for proof of what you hope you are wrong about. Because sometimes the only way to restore trust is to definitively establish whether that trust has been broken. The first real sign came 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday morning in late October. I woke up at my usual time, but instead of finding Jessica already in the shower getting ready for her marketing job downtown, I found her side of the bed empty. The sheets were cold, which meant she had been gone for at least an hour. I found her in the kitchen, fully dressed in workout clothes I had never seen before, expensive-looking leggings that hugged her figure, a fitted athletic top that showed off curves she usually kept hidden under her conservative work attire. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail that looked professionally styled, and she was applying lip gloss with the kind of careful attention usually reserved for important business meetings or special occasions. "You are up early," I said, pouring myself coffee from the pot she had already made. "I told you I was starting that new yoga class, remember? Hot yoga at the studio downtown. It starts at 7:30, so I need to leave in about 10 minutes. I did not remember her mentioning any yoga class, but Jessica was always trying new fitness routines. Over the 8 years of our marriage, she had been through Pilates phases, spinning obsessions, a brief period where she was convinced that CrossFit would transform her life, and an even briefer period where she attended dance classes that she claimed would help with stress management. Most of these enthusiasms lasted between 6 weeks and 3 months before being replaced by some other form of exercise that promised better results or a more convenient schedule. That is great, babe. I am proud of you for prioritizing your health. I meant it too. Jessica had always been beautiful, but over the past few years she had seemed to lose some of her confidence about her appearance. She dressed more conservatively, rarely wore makeup on weekends, and had developed a habit of deflecting compliments about how she looked. She smiled at me, but something about the expression felt rehearsed. Too bright, too deliberately cheerful, like she had been practicing it in the mirror. I might be a little late tonight. The instructor recommended staying after class for some individual coaching to work on my form. She grabbed her yoga mat from the counter, along with a gym bag that looked brand new and expensive. Do not wait up if you get tired. I watched her leave through the kitchen window, noting that she walked to her car with a confidence and energy I rarely saw anymore. This version of my wife, polished, purposeful, glowing with anticipation, was someone I barely recognized. It reminded me of how she used to look when we first started dating, when every interaction felt charged with possibility and excitement. But that excitement used to be about spending time with me. Now it seemed to be about going somewhere else. Jessica's yoga phase continued for 3 weeks. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning, she left the house at 7 in those expensive workout clothes, returning home around 10 at night looking flushed and energized in a way that reminded me uncomfortably of how she used to look after we made love. When I asked about her classes, she was enthusiastic but vague. How was yoga tonight? Challenging but so worth it. I am really starting to see improvements in my flexibility and strength. She certainly seemed different, more confident, more mysterious. She started buying new clothes, not the practical business attire she usually preferred, but flowing dresses and fitted jeans that showed off her figure in ways that had not seemed to interest her in years. She got highlights in her hair and started wearing perfume again, something floral and expensive that I did not recognize. You look beautiful, I told her one Saturday morning as she got dressed for what she said was a shopping trip with her sister. Thank you, she replied, but she did not look at me when she said it. Instead, she focused on applying mascara with surgical precision, studying herself in the bathroom mirror like she was preparing for a performance rather than a casual day of shopping. I should have paid more attention to the details. I should have noticed that she never mentioned specific poses she was learning, never talked about other people in her class, never suggested that I try the studio myself. I should have realized that someone who had never shown sustained interest in yoga beyond the occasional YouTube video at home was unlikely to suddenly become devoted to a practice that required getting up before dawn twice a week. But I was distracted by a major product launch at work, and honestly, I was happy to see Jessica seeming more like her old self again. The confident, radiant woman I had fallen in love with had been missing for so long that I was grateful to have her back, even if something felt different about the way she carried herself now. The second sign came on a Thursday evening in mid-November. I had gotten home early from work, hoping to surprise Jessica with dinner from her favorite Vietnamese restaurant. But when I arrived, her car was not in the driveway, and the house was dark except for the automatic porch light that turns on at sunset. I called her cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. Hey, it is me. I brought home pho and spring rolls from that place you love. Call me when you get this. She did not call back for 2 hours. When she finally walked through the front door at 9:15, she looked like she had been through a workout that was far more intense than any yoga class I had ever heard of. Her hair was disheveled despite being pulled back in a ponytail. Her cheeks were flushed with a glow that seemed to come from more than just physical exertion, and she had that same energized radiance I was starting to associate with her Thursday evening activities. Sorry I am so late, she said, barely making eye contact as she headed straight for the stairs. The instructor kept us after class to work on some really advanced poses. I am completely exhausted. I really need a shower. I reheated her dinner and waited for her to come back downstairs, but she claimed she was too tired to eat and went straight to bed. When I finally joined her an hour later, she was already asleep, turned away from me on her side of the bed, her body language suggesting that even in sleep she wanted to maintain distance between us. The third sign was the phone calls. They started small, brief conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room. Text messages that made her smile in ways I had not seen in months. A new habit of taking her phone with her everywhere, including short trips to get the mail or check something in the garage. Who was that? I asked one Saturday afternoon after she finished a 10-minute conversation in the kitchen while I was reading in the living room. Just Sarah from work. She was asking about that client presentation we are giving next week. But something in her voice did not match the casual nature of her explanation. And I could not shake the feeling that the laugh I had heard during her conversation was not the kind of laugh you share with a coworker about a professional presentation. It was intimate, flirtatious, the kind of laugh that suggested shared secrets and inside jokes. I started paying closer attention to her phone habits. Jessica had always been casual about leaving her device around the house, often forgetting it on the kitchen counter or leaving it charging in the bedroom while she did other things. But now she carried it with her everywhere. To the bathroom, to the laundry room, even when she stepped outside to water the plants on our deck. When it buzzed with notifications, she would check it immediately with the kind of anticipation usually reserved for important news or exciting opportunities. The changes were subtle but consistent. Later bedtimes because she was catching up on reading. Earlier mornings because she wanted to get a jump on the day. Weekend errands that took much longer than they used to. A general sense of distraction, like her mind was somewhere else even when her body was sitting next to me on the couch watching Netflix or sharing a meal at our kitchen table. I told myself I was being paranoid. Marriage goes through phases. People change and grow and develop new interests. Just because Jessica was becoming more independent and confident did not mean anything sinister was happening. Maybe she was just finding herself again after years of being defined primarily as my wife rather than as an individual with her own goals and desires. But then came the night that changed everything. It was a Tuesday in early December. Jessica had texted me that afternoon to say her yoga class was canceled due to some issue with the studio's heating system, so she would be home for dinner. I stopped at the grocery store on my way home from work, planning to make her favorite meal, herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables and the good wine we saved for special occasions. It had been weeks since we had a romantic evening together, and I thought this might be an opportunity to reconnect and have the kind of intimate conversation we used to enjoy before our lives became so busy and compartmentalized. When I arrived home with bags of groceries, Jessica's car was in the driveway, but the house was quiet. I called out to her as I entered through the garage, expecting to hear her voice from the kitchen or living room, but there was no response. I assumed she was upstairs, maybe taking a nap after work or getting changed into something more comfortable. I was in the kitchen unpacking groceries when I heard her phone buzzing on the counter. She had left it behind, which was highly unusual given her recent habit of carrying it everywhere. I figured she was probably in the shower and had not heard it ring. The buzzing stopped, then started again immediately. Then again. Someone was really trying to reach her. Multiple calls in quick succession usually indicate some kind of emergency, a family crisis, a work problem that requires immediate attention, something urgent enough to justify repeatedly calling until you reach the person you need to talk to. I should not have looked. I know that. Privacy in marriage is important, and trust means respecting boundaries even when curiosity is eating at you. But something about the urgency of those repeated calls made me worry that it might be a genuine emergency. What if something had happened to her parents? What if her sister needed help with some crisis? What if there was a work emergency that required Jessica's immediate attention? I picked up her phone to see if the caller was someone I recognized, someone who might need immediate assistance or have legitimate reasons for calling so persistently. Instead, I saw a name I did not recognize, Ryan M. The text message preview showed on the locked screen. "Are you still coming tonight? I have been thinking about you all day." My hands started shaking as I stared at that message. I tried to unlock her phone to see the full conversation, but Jessica had recently changed her passcode from our anniversary date to something I did not know. She had claimed the change was for security reasons after reading an article about identity theft. But now I wondered if the real reason was to prevent exactly what I was trying to do at that moment. But I had seen enough. "Are you still coming tonight? I have been thinking about you all day." Was not the kind of message you send to a yoga instructor or a work colleague. It was definitely not the kind of message that would be sent to someone whose class had been canceled due to heating problems at the studio. It was the kind of message you send to someone you are having an affair with. I set the phone back down on the counter exactly where Jessica had left it, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of building a life together, buying a house, talking about starting a family someday, believing that we were partners in creating something meaningful and lasting. 8 years of trust and shared dreams and mutual support through the inevitable challenges that life presents. And she was cheating on me. I stood in that kitchen surrounded by groceries I had bought to make a romantic dinner for my cheating wife, and I felt something inside me break. Not just my heart, though that was certainly shattered. Something deeper and more fundamental. My faith in my own judgment, my belief that I knew the person I had married, my confidence that our life together was real and solid and worth the compromises that marriage requires. Jessica came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair damp from the shower, wearing a dress I had never seen before. It was elegant and fitted, the kind of outfit you wear when you want to look attractive for someone whose opinion matters to you. "Oh, you were home early," she said, noticing the grocery bags on the counter. "I thought you were working late tonight. I wanted to surprise you with dinner since your yoga class was canceled, but I see you have other plans." I nodded toward her phone, which was still sitting where she had left it, probably displaying additional messages from Ryan M. that she had not yet seen. She picked up the device and quickly scrolled through her messages, her face carefully neutral in the way people look when they are processing unexpected information and trying to decide how to respond. "Actually, Sarah just invited me to a last-minute girls' night. I hope you do not mind. I know we talked about having dinner together, but it has been so long since I had a chance to catch up with the girls from work." Sarah, the same name she had been using to explain mysterious phone calls for weeks. But the text message I saw was from Ryan M., not Sarah anybody. "Of course," I said, forcing my voice to sound normal and supportive. "Go have fun with your friends. I can cook this salmon tomorrow instead." She kissed my cheek before heading toward the garage, and I caught a whiff of that expensive perfume again. The perfume she never wore for me anymore but apparently wore to yoga classes and girls' nights out and whatever other activities required her to look and smell like someone who was trying to impress a new romantic interest. "I might be late," she called over her shoulder. "Do not wait up." After she left, I sat in my kitchen surrounded by the ingredients for a romantic dinner that would never happen, trying to process what I had learned. My wife was having an affair with someone named Ryan M. She was lying to me about yoga classes and girls' nights and probably dozens of other things I had not even discovered yet. The woman I had trusted with my financial future, my emotional well-being, and my faith in the possibility of lasting love was systematically deceiving me while using our shared home as a base of operations for her secret relationship. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I could confront her immediately when she came home tonight, demand to know who Ryan M. was, how long this had been going on, whether she wanted to save our marriage or end it. That would be the mature, straightforward approach advocated by marriage counselors and relationship experts. Clear the air, establish the facts, make informed decisions about how to move forward together or separately. But something stopped me from choosing the direct approach. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the need to understand the full scope of her deception before deciding how to respond. Or maybe it was the realization that confronting her now would put her on the defensive and make it harder to learn the truth about what I was really dealing with. Instead, I decided to investigate. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own life. I started paying attention to details I had been ignoring for months. I noticed that Jessica's yoga classes always seemed to coincide with her most elaborate grooming routines. I noticed that her girls' nights never involved coming home with stories about what her friends were doing or photos from their adventures together. I noticed that she had started keeping her laptop password protected and her phone locked at all times. I noticed that she did her own laundry now, separating her clothes from mine and washing them at times when I was not around to observe the process. I noticed that she had started carrying a small cosmetic bag in her purse that she had never carried before, keeping it zipped shut and always taking it with her when she went to the bathroom even when we were at home. Most importantly, I noticed that our sex life had become virtually non-existent. We had not been intimate in over 6 weeks, which Jessica attributed to stress at work and fatigue from her new exercise routine. But now I understood that her energy and passion were being directed elsewhere, towards someone who was getting the benefit of all the attention and effort she was no longer investing in our marriage. On the Saturday before Christmas, Jessica announced that she was going shopping with her sister for last-minute gifts. She would be gone most of the day, she said, and I should not expect her back until evening. This gave me the opportunity one had been waiting for. Several hours alone in our house to search for more evidence of her affair. 30 minutes after she left, I did something I had never done in 8 years of marriage. I systematically searched through her personal belongings. I started with her dresser, looking for anything that might give me more information about who Ryan M. was or how serious this relationship had become. In the back of her underwear drawer, hidden behind practical cotton basics she had worn throughout our marriage, I found new lingerie that I had never seen her wear. Expensive lace and silk in colors and styles that were nothing like her usual preferences. The tags were still attached to some pieces, suggesting that she had bought them recently but had not yet found the right occasion to wear them. Or maybe she was saving them for special occasions with Ryan M. In her jewelry box, underneath the necklaces and earrings I had given her for various anniversaries and birthdays, I found a delicate gold bracelet that I had not purchased. It was beautiful, clearly expensive, and engraved with a single initial, R. R for Ryan, a gift from her lover, hidden among the jewelry her husband had given her. But the real discovery came when I searched her purse. Hidden in a zippered compartment inside her wallet, tucked behind credit cards and business cards, I found a small tube that made my blood run cold. Personal lubricant. Expensive, specialized, the kind marketed to couples looking to enhance their intimate experiences. Jessica and I had never used anything like that in our relationship. Our sex life had always been straightforward, comfortable, routine. Nothing that would require special products or advanced preparation. Nothing that suggested the kind of passion and experimentation that requires accessories. But apparently her relationship with Ryan M. was different, more adventurous, more exciting. The kind of relationship that required planning and preparation and the kind of anticipation that made her glow like a teenager with her first serious crush. I sat in our bedroom holding that tube of lubricant, and I felt something shift inside me. The hurt and betrayal were still there, but now they were joined by something else. Anger. Cold, calculating anger at the woman who had been lying to me for months while using our home and our marriage as cover for her secret relationship. She was not just cheating on me. She was being careless about it, leaving evidence around our house, using our shared resources to fund her deception. She was treating me like I was too stupid or too trusting to notice what was happening right in front of me. That was her mistake. I put everything back exactly where I had found it, but not before taking photos of the evidence with my phone. The lingerie with tags still attached. The bracelet engraved with R. The tube of personal lubricant that had never been used in our bedroom. Documentation of my wife's betrayal. Proof that I was not imagining things or being paranoid. Then I went to my computer and did some research. It turns out that personal lubricant has a very specific chemical composition designed to be safe for intimate use. Water-based formulas, carefully balanced pH levels, ingredients that will not cause irritation or harm under normal circumstances of use. The manufacturers spend millions of dollars on research and testing to ensure that their products enhance pleasure without creating health risks. It also turns out that there are industrial adhesives with remarkably similar packaging, similar consistency, but very different chemical properties. Adhesives designed to create permanent bonds between surfaces that need to stay connected under extreme stress. Adhesives that would be extremely dangerous if used in place of personal lubricant during intimate activity. I spent the rest of that Saturday researching chemical compositions, reading safety data sheets, and learning about the medical consequences of accidentally using industrial adhesive instead of personal lubricant. The results would be immediate, painful, and would require emergency medical intervention to resolve safely. It would also be nearly impossible to explain to medical professionals without admitting exactly what you were trying to do when the accident occurred. The beauty of this approach was its plausible deniability. Industrial adhesive tubes are often displayed near personal care products in hardware stores. Someone in a hurry, not paying careful attention to labels, could easily grab the wrong product. It would look like a genuine mistake, a tragic accident that happened because someone was careless about reading packaging. Except it would not be an accident. It would be revenge. By Sunday morning, I had developed a detailed plan. I knew that Jessica kept that tube of lubricant in her purse because she needed it readily available for her encounters with Ryan M. I knew that she trusted me not to search through her personal belongings, which meant she was not taking precautions to hide evidence from me. And I knew that she would never expect me to be capable of the kind of calculated, cold-blooded revenge I was planning. On Monday, while Jessica was at work, I drove to a hardware store in a different part of the city and purchased a tube of industrial adhesive that was similar in size and packaging to what I had found in her purse. I paid cash, wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, and made sure not to shop at any store where I might be recognized by employees or security cameras that could later tie me to the purchase. That evening, while Jessica was in the shower preparing for what she claimed was a book club meeting that required her to dress like she was going on a date, I carefully opened the tube of lubricant she kept hidden in her purse. Using a small syringe I had purchased at a pharmacy, I removed the original contents and replaced them with the industrial adhesive. The consistency was similar enough that she would not notice the difference through the packaging. The color was nearly identical. Only the chemical properties were different properties that would not become apparent until the product was actually used for its intended purpose. I resealed the tube carefully, making sure there were no visible signs of tampering. Then I put it back in her purse exactly where I had found it. All I had to do was wait. Jessica left for her book club meeting at 7:30 on Tuesday evening, wearing a dress that was far too elegant for discussing literature with suburban housewives. She kissed my cheek goodbye, told me not to wait up, and drove away to meet her lover. I spent the evening working on a coding project, trying to distract myself from thinking about what was probably happening at that moment. Jessica and Ryan M. preparing for their romantic encounter. Jessica reaching for what she thought was her usual preparation, not knowing that she was about to discover the consequences of lying to someone who trusted her completely. The call came at 11:47. Daniel? This is Dr. Harrison at Seattle General Emergency Department. Your wife has been brought to the hospital. You need to come immediately. My hands were completely steady as I got dressed and drove to the hospital. I had been expecting this call. I had planned for this moment. I had researched the timing and symptoms extensively. But nothing had prepared me for seeing Jessica in that hospital bed. She was conscious but clearly in tremendous pain, connected to an IV drip and surrounded by medical equipment that beeped and hummed with electronic precision. Her face was flushed with embarrassment as much as physical discomfort, and she could barely make eye contact with me when I entered the room. What happened? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Dr. Harrison pulled me aside to explain the situation. Jessica had been brought in by paramedics along with a man who was not her husband. They had both been in a state of medical emergency that required immediate surgical intervention due to accidental exposure to industrial adhesive during what the doctor delicately termed intimate activity. It appears they mistakenly used a product that was not intended for personal use. Dr. Harrison explained with the carefully neutral tone medical professionals use when discussing embarrassing situations. The adhesive created a bond that required very careful medical removal. Both patients will make full recoveries, but it was quite serious. Another hour or two without treatment, and there could have been permanent damage. I nodded gravely, playing the role of the concerned husband who had no idea how such a terrible accident could have occurred. The other man, I said, is he someone Jessica works with? I want to make sure her employer knows she might need some time off to recover from this incident. Dr. Harrison looked uncomfortable. I think that is something you and your wife should discuss privately when she is feeling better. When I was finally allowed to see Jessica alone, she could barely speak above a whisper. The pain medication made her drowsy, but not drowsy enough to miss the significance of what had happened or the implications of my presence in her hospital room. Daniel, I need to tell you something. You need to rest, I said, taking her hand in mine with what I hoped looked like genuine concern. We can talk about everything when you are feeling better. But she gripped my hand tighter, her eyes filling with tears that could have been from physical pain or emotional anguish. You do not understand. Tonight, I was not where I said I was going to be. I know, I said quietly. She stared at me, trying to process my response through the haze of pain medication and shock. You know, I have known for weeks about Ryan M., about the yoga classes that do not exist, about all of it. The silence that followed was broken only by the beeping of medical equipment and the distant sound of hospital activity in the hallway. Jessica stared at me with an expression I had never seen before, a mixture of fear, confusion, and dawning realization. Then why? She started, but could not finish the question. Why did I not confront you? Why did I let you keep lying to me? Why did I not try to save our marriage before it got to this point? She nodded weakly. Because I needed to understand what I was really dealing with, I said. I needed to know if this was a mistake you regretted or a choice you were comfortable making. I needed to know if you were going to confess and ask for forgiveness, or if you were planning to keep lying to me indefinitely. Daniel, I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. You have been hurting me for months. Every lie, every fake yoga class, every night you came home smelling like another man and pretended to be tired from book club. She was crying now, the tears mixing with the exhaustion and pain medication to make her look younger and more vulnerable than I had seen her in years. I do not know how this happened, she whispered. I love you. I have always loved you. But somewhere along the way, I started feeling invisible in our marriage. Like we were roommates instead of lovers. like you saw me as a responsibility instead of a woman you desired. I wanted to argue with her, to defend myself, to point out that I had been working hard to build the financial security and professional success she said she wanted. But sitting in that hospital room, looking at my wife recovering from the consequences of her deception, I realized that maybe we had both been sleepwalking through our marriage for longer than either of us wanted to admit. "So you found someone who made you feel desired," I said. "I found someone who made me feel alive again," she corrected. "Someone who looked at me like I was fascinating instead of familiar. Someone who wanted to know what I was thinking, what I was dreaming about, what made me laugh. And you never thought to have that conversation with me? To tell me you were feeling invisible and give me a chance to change." She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "I was scared you would try to fix it like a software problem, optimize our relationship for better performance. I needed to feel like a woman, not a project to be debugged." Her words hit me harder than I expected because they contained more truth than I wanted to acknowledge. I would have approached our marriage problems exactly like a technical challenge, looking for systematic solutions and measurable improvements. I would have scheduled date nights and planned romantic gestures and tracked our progress like a development project. I would have missed the point entirely. "The lubricant in your purse," I said after a long silence. "How did it get switched with industrial adhesive?" She looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Fear, mixed with dawning realization and something that might have been respect for the complexity of what I had accomplished. "You knew where I kept it?" "I found it when I was looking for proof of what I already suspected." "And you switched it?" I did not answer directly. Industrial adhesive has very similar packaging to personal lubricant. It would be easy to make that kind of mistake if you were not paying careful attention to what you were buying. She stared at me for a full minute, processing the implications of what I had just said. I could see her working through the logic, understanding that her medical emergency was not an accident but the result of a carefully planned act of revenge. "You could have killed us," she said finally. "I could have, but I did not." I researched the medical consequences very carefully. Painful, embarrassing, requiring emergency intervention, but not life-threatening if treated promptly. "You planned this. I planned for you to discover that actions have consequences. That lying and cheating and treating your husband like he is too stupid to notice your deception eventually catches up with you." She was quiet again, staring at the ceiling while tears ran down her cheeks. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you recover from your medical emergency. Then we decide whether we want to try to rebuild our marriage or end it. And Ryan is not my problem. Ryan is the man who was sleeping with someone else's wife and did not bother to ask whether she was being honest with him about her situation. Ryan gets to explain to his own family and friends why he ended up in the emergency room under such embarrassing circumstances." Over the next few days, while Jessica recovered at home, we had the conversations we should have been having for months, about how our marriage had become a routine instead of a romance, about how we had both stopped seeing each other as individuals and started treating each other as roles to be filled, about how easy it is to drift apart when you stop making the effort to stay connected. "I know what I did was unforgivable," Jessica said on the third day of her recovery. "I betrayed your trust. I lied to you for months, and I risked our entire marriage for someone who turned out to be just as selfish as I was. And I know what I did was dangerous and vindictive," I replied. "I could have seriously hurt you. I could have caused permanent damage. I let my anger and pride override my judgment. Do you think we can fix this?" I looked at my wife, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She was beautiful, but not in the carefully constructed way she had been presenting herself for her affair. This was raw, honest beauty. the beauty of someone who had stopped pretending and started telling the truth. "I think we can try," I said, "but it is going to require both of us to change. You are going to have to rebuild my trust, and I am going to have to learn how to be a husband instead of just a provider." 6 months later, we are still married, still working on rebuilding what we damaged through neglect, deception, and revenge. It is not easy. Some days, we both wonder if it would be simpler to start over with other people who do not carry the baggage of betrayal and calculated vindictiveness. But most days, we are grateful for the crisis that forced us to see how far we had drifted from each other. We go to couples therapy every Wednesday. I go to individual therapy every Monday to work on my tendency to solve emotional problems like technical problems. Jessica goes every Friday to understand why she chose deception over honest communication when she started feeling invisible in our marriage. We have learned that marriage is not a destination you arrive at. It is a journey you choose to take together, and that choice has to be made over and over again as you both change and grow and face new challenges. Sometimes people ask me if I am angry about the affair, if I wish I had handled the situation differently, if I trust Jessica completely now. The honest answers are complicated. Do I trust her completely? I trust her commitment to our marriage and her understanding of what is at stake if she chooses deception again. But complete trust, the kind of unconscious, absolute faith I had before the affair, that is something we are still rebuilding day by day. The most important thing I learned from this experience is that revenge, even when it feels justified, changes you in ways you do not expect. I am not proud of the calculating coldness I displayed when I decided to sabotage Jessica's affair, but I am grateful that the shock of what happened forced both Jessica and me to confront truths we had been avoiding. Marriage is complicated. Love is complicated. Forgiveness is complicated. But the alternative, giving up on someone you promised to love for better or worse, is even more complicated in the long run. Jessica and I chose the hard path of fighting for our marriage instead of the easy path of walking away. We are still here, still choosing each other, still building something worth keeping. And that has to count for something. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Before you go, I have left 2 more stories here on your screen. Both from men who discovered that family is not always who you are born to, it is who stands by you when the truth comes out. Click on whichever one calls to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it is like to be the outsider looking in, that notification bell is your invitation. Until tomorrow, remember your story matters, even if they tried to erase it.